Welcome to the Effortless Mindfulness Podcast. I'm Loch Kelly, and here I share talks and deep dialogues with leading experts in the field of meditation, psychology, and neuroscience. Together we'll explore how everyday people like you and me can live an awakened life of clarity and compassion. You'll also find micro meditations in every podcast episode. If you want to try more of these, you can go to mindfulglimpses.com to download the new app to experience immediate benefits. Because the love and peace we're all seeking is already here, anywhere, anytime. Enjoy. So welcome, everybody. I'm really happy, and it's a joy and a pleasure to be with my friend and colleague, Stephan Bodian.
Great to see you, Loch.
So it's been wonderful to have you as a colleague along the way. We have so much in common and have this heart connection, as well as, fun dialogues throughout the years that since we met. So, why don't we begin with, maybe that topic of kind of bringing together non-dual meditation and mindfulness. And
I like to give people a sense of the journey is not going to be instantaneous or quick, and not to expect too much or be self-critical, but be very patient and kind with oneself, and not try to compare oneself to some examples that you've read about in books. I also feel that, which I like to also say to people, really, is that every awakening is different. There's that parable of the blind men and the elephant from the, I think it's in the Buddhist, probably also in the Hindu tradition, right? And it's often talked about where they're only seeing, it's talked about as their seeing is inadequate because they're only seeing part of the elephant. But the fact is, when you wake up, you may wake up to just the snout or the leg of the elephant, And then over time, the whole thing starts to become apparent, be revealed to you. And in the beginning, you may not know exactly what you're discovering. So I really strongly encourage people to trust their own unfolding, that everyone is different. It doesn't happen the way it's talked about in books, my book, your book, anyone's books, right? Because so much of what we're trained in, I was a monk for 10 years and I was doing koans, and it was all sort of a cookie cutter approach. You solve this koan and this koan and this koan, and you get to here. And I found that was very restricting. So that's why I pass on to my students this more open view of the whole path,
Yeah. And there's many, as I find as I do these kind of glimpses, which are kind of shifts immediately, that there are different doorways and different learning styles and different obstacles. So some people, I'll ask a big group of people, how many people get it by kind of dropping within, like the kingdom of heaven is within, and you get 50%. How many people by kind of opening up out, and then another half will go out and say, well, yeah, so is it within or is it, it's like, so it's the door, and it's the human consciousness that has a certain particularity that isn't one style. And if you get into one style and just say, keep hitting your head against the wall.
Which I did for 10 years as a monk. So I know it very well. Yeah. And when you're not getting it, in the Zen tradition, you're just advised to keep going, doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. So there is kind of a, impressionist map that we're, so it's not exact, but we're kind of in a more inquiry style way. We're saying that there is this no self, but there is this awake awareness, and then there is this unity of awareness and aliveness, or emptiness and form, that then, Thich Nhat Hanh called it interbeing, which I think is a lovely
interbeing. I love that term. I agree with you. That's a beautiful term. Yeah, it's my favorite way. Instead of oneness, I prefer, because oneness, I think so many people come and they have this misunderstanding. I've had these, real powerful glimpses, but I still haven't experienced oneness. And I said, I think there's really a misunderstanding about this oneness thing. It's not about like this oceanic feeling, we're all one, which is a beautiful experience, but that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, it's just a state that comes and goes, but it's really that sense of interpenetration, and we're all one essence, we could say. Yeah.
Yeah, one essence, and so the key is that non-duality is that simultaneous or paradoxical. So, in Sanskrit, they have many words for one, but they use non-dual. So there's a reason for that.
Yeah. By the way, the two truths, it was also an Advaita development as well. Historically, it developed at around the same time. So they were actually sharing a lot of insights across the Mahayana Advaita border there. So
And that sharing that this is, it's like from from Hinduism, Buddha was a Hindu. So from Hinduism to Buddhism to and there's a free flow of ideas. There's beautiful descriptions, Satchit Ananda, truth, consciousness, and bliss, are the three qualities. It's like, yeah, that's right. That's good. And they would use love, bliss is kind of an interesting word. And I think it's really important in its different dimensions. There's kind of a little leaning into bliss in some of the chanting Hindu styles, and then there's almost an anti-bliss in some of the
exactly.
Buddhist, like what's up, if you
I
get
actually
bliss,
think that
that's the
Ananda is
last.
more like, it's really closer to love, I actually think. You know,
Yeah, yes,
unconditional love. Yeah,
unconditional
that's
love
my
is what I
sense of
think.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And that feeling you get when you drop in, that unconditional love is literally, for those who are listening and have had a taste of it, it's not compassion. It's not loving kindness. It's not sympathetic joy. It's literally like the fabric of relief that there's no conditions, that it's receiving this love and connection, interconnection with everything, which is really emptiness. And that kind of love, like in Greece, they talk about eros and is erotic love, and then philia is friendship, and then agape is that divine love. It's this that's so important to get that, that's where we're going, is that safe. It's safe and it's connected and it is love, but it's not even compassion. Compassionate
It's a flavor of love. Yeah.
flavor of love. Yeah.
You could say it's the ocean in which we are held, is what love in the way we're talking about it is. The ocean of being. Again, another quality of being. It's just another quality of the being that we are.
Yeah. And so, moving. So obviously the oh, awakening, or the waking up and growing up and
Hmm.
healing up, as is really what we're interested in, both in
Absolutely.
our own lives, continuing to unfold. And as you said, that I've said that awakening is the next natural stage of human development. So bringing
Right.
them together, kind of, that it's really takes that much time. It's like a developmental stage, so it can
A
take 3 years,
lifetime,
9
several
years,
lifetimes.
you know, it could be
Right.
lifetime if it's
Yeah.
adult development. It's a full lifetime, but there's some kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And as you say, those repressed contents or those traumas that have had, whether they're big T traumas, from real abuse, or small T trauma, which pretty much everyone has had just
Sure.
by
Being a
growing up
human
and being a
being. Yeah.
sensitive human. And then we develop actually this ego strength, which is the model
Western
that we have
psychology.
in a
Yeah.
lot of psychology and our culture. Be strong, rub some dirt on it,
Right.
get back in there. Don't let it. Don't let it replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Even that kind of thing creates this, stronger, more repressed, more dualistic,
Sure.
separated, insular feeling that is very lonely and very, very, very much what
Right.
unawake is, even if it's smart and successful and
So one thing about the 2 steps forward and 3 steps, or 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, hopefully, yeah, all the above. But I think what's also true is when we go 2 steps forward and 3 steps back or whatever it is, it isn't just we're going back to the same place. We're actually opening out and expanding and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The more that we embrace, the more that we're experiencing, and the more that's coming up, we're growing more and more into who we really are, which is this boundless openness. So it may seem like, we're going forward and back, but actually we're just getting bigger and bigger, opening into our true nature, right? So I think that I like to frame it that way because I think that's actually how it works.
yeah. So it's more almost like
Detoxing,
detoxing or
right?
thawing
Right.
out.
Yeah, unraveling, you could say. In a certain way, we're unraveling. Yeah. Which may sound like a problem, but is actually much to be wished for. I mean, you talk about where we're headed. That's where we're headed. The ultimate unraveling.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And in terms of ego strength, there's ego strength, but there's also something that goes deeper, like resilience. And this ego strength where we're holding things in and holding things down, which big boys don't cry, you gotta hold it together, stiff upper lip sort of thing. Maybe ego strength, which is repressive. But then there's also this resilience, and when I was a monk leaving the monastery, there was this book by Jack Engler and Dan Brown called Transformations of Consciousness. And one of the things that Engler says was, you have to be somebody before you can be nobody. And that was a big, interesting question at the time that people talked about. Do you have to be somebody to be nobody? I don't think so. I think it's a much more complex process. You can, however, there is something about, what we might call in contemporary psychology, secure attachment, some sense of a strong self construct, a strong self sense at a more psychological level, which is not necessarily ego, but is a sense of like, I exist. I'm not just nobody. For people who are maybe schizophrenic or have other deep psychological issues, they can really have a sense that I don't exist in a negative way. It's not, there's no self. It's just like, I just don't exist. So I think having that sense of existing and being sort of, here in the world as a person is a good foundation.
Yes. And at the same time, having worked for many years in a clinic, outpatient clinic in Brooklyn, and working with people who just out of the hospital with all the major diagnoses, the the thing was then that unless you had that secure attachment or you had a sense of self, you couldn't develop it, or you had a sense of love. And the awakened consciousness, that fabric of unconditional love, I found that people, regardless of whether they had
Mm-hmm.
the external support, that they could access that. They certainly have a lot more work of healing of the trauma, and it can peek through and take some time to trust it. But
Yeah.
it's not based on
It's not required. It's not
bonding
required.
from
Yeah, that's
humans
good
only.
news, I
Yeah,
think, for
right.
everyone
Yeah.
to consider that even though, you had chaotic attachment as a child and, you have difficulty in relationships. I mean, the ultimate healer is to awaken to our true nature. So I think it's important to say that, over and over again. It may not heal everything all at once, but, it's that deepest ground. In Buddhism, it's called a wish fulfilling jewel. And that it really is the ultimate. I would say the ultimate healer. So wake up and then embody again, like we're talking about. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And that embodiment, certainly requires a clear sense of going beyond conditioning to that awake
Right.
awareness or awake consciousness that, sometimes I say that, like deliberate mindfulness, you recognize who you're not. And then in effortless mindfulness, you
Mm-hmm.
recognize who you are. And, and recognizing what comes and goes, and recognizing, I think one of the key
Right.
things is what doesn't come and go. And so that feeling, that's one of the qualities that is the checklist on the checklist of have I experienced awake awareness, pure consciousness, whatever Rigpa, this dimension of Dharmakaya, is that it's not coming going. And just that, I mean, to me, that's what stillness is.
Right.
Because it's not about things being still. It's about, oh, that's what's not coming going. That's so still, but still is like
Yeah.
permeating
Stillness beneath
rest.
all the activity, silence beneath all the sound, the
Yeah.
deepest ground, the groundless ground. I think I find that term very
Yeah.
resonant, that groundless ground,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Do you find that pointing to that with your students, that which comes and goes, and
absolutely,
then that
absolutely.
which doesn't come and go? Because some people say no, it's not that it doesn't come and go; it's beyond that.
There is no coming and goingness, you could say. Being itself is still, silent, all pervasive, mysterious, has its own unique, exquisite intelligence, right? But can't be grasped, can't be known. It's beyond any knowing that can happen on our part, and yet we can recognize that we are it. You know, that's the paradox among the paradoxes. Yeah. It knows itself by itself, as Jean Klein used to say. A beautiful way of putting it. It knows itself by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it's not just resting. That it once it rests, it realizes that I'm not aware of it. That I'm resting as it, and then the embodiment is the interconnection with the relative functioning, which tries to come back and say, "Oh, don't you want me on board? Don't shouldn't I be driving
Right,
the
right,
vehicle
right,
now?"
right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, beautiful.
So how to negotiate with those, so that that whatever that small self or that ego self, I think there's certain traditions that say, well, you got to get rid of it. It's an illusion. And ultimately, it's an illusion, but relatively, it's not. But relatively, it doesn't have to be the center. And it's not an ego identity, it's an ego function.
It is a function. And as you know, there are many egos. I know you have studied and taught internal family systems. So I would say those are many egos, many parts. So there is no self there, but there are many little egos, right?
There's many, many parts. And that's where they come together. That's kind of an elegant way to not feel like you're either or, like got it, like Adi Shanti says, got it and lost it. And people get caught in the, got the pure awareness, now I'm back in the small self. But if you come back embodied and then say, okay, well, whatever parts are rising, I'm aware of it from true nature. And so it's not, you don't have to go into at that level of relationality during the day. You don't have to use the lens where you make it disappear and you look with a fine lens to like, oh, it doesn't actually exist. You can do that in meditation and it's true on one level, but it's a multi-dimensional, non-dual is probably non-triad, non-4, 9-5, you know.
I really love and recommend always this beautiful poem by Rumi, which you're the guest house, right? Coleman Barks' translation. I would say it's probably as much Coleman Barks, that poem, as it is Rumi. because people have pointed out that it's probably not an exact translation, but welcome and entertain them all. That quality of welcoming whatever your experience is, not trying to get rid of it, not trying to push it away, not judging it, but really welcoming it with an open heart, you know. And the Tibetans call that self-liberation. If things are welcomed, they self-liberate. They don't have to hang around because they're, as the beautiful poem Song of Talopa says, the sage of Mahamudra has no distractions because no war against distractions has ever been declared, right? So there's no these aren't problems. We welcome them.
Yeah. And so it's that, we're talking about almost that stage from awake awareness to same taste or embodiment or inner being, and then, what I call open hearted awareness or welcoming, in other words, being love, so that it's not that you recognize that all is well, but it's all is well welcomes what is tended to be distracting and which has pain and is detoxing, but being that which is and it's not looking from above like witness consciousness. It's not even a little bit. It is boundless. It is boundless awareness and within simultaneously, right? And yeah, and that's the thing that I've been playing with, that seems to be one of the ways to actually bring the psychology um, and really the full, at least temporary realization together, is to realize there's a hurt part and then find some space and not stop at a mindful witness or a observing ego, but go to the full awake awareness that's embodied, and then realize, don't try to make the part go away that's hurt, and don't even treat it with compassion. Don't even just don't say, oh, I'm so sorry, but literally unconditionally love. Just say, you don't even have to change.
Exactly what I say. Exactly. I love that word welcoming, actually, which is in the Rumi poem. It was a word that Jean Klein used all the time. It's allowing, but with a heartfelt quality to it. You're really genuinely welcoming it. Again, non-dual means nothing left out, embracing it all. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not fighting, not pushing away, not changing, not even trying to heal, but just welcoming, but recognizing that the nature of whatever it is not trying to hurt you, but it may be actually detoxing.
Or it has its own reason for being, as the internal family systems would say, an important reason for being. Developmentally, historically, it came on board at a certain point in your life to protect you or to nurture you, or whatever it might be, and it still has a role to play in this psychic constellation, you know. But that's not who you are, and it can play itself out in a benign way. As long as you're not identifying with it, or getting caught up in its agenda, basically.
Yeah, and what do you say with students about sitting and practicing kind of off the cushion?
The cushion is just a testing ground. It's just the cushion is just one. If it doesn't translate into everyday life, what's the point, right? So I would say throughout the day, I use a mnemonic called the 4 R's or the 3 R's. Basically, remember, recognize, return, and rest. It's just like one movement. Come back, rest for a moment, let everything be as it is. Rest as awareness, and welcome, and then go about your day from that place, and then every now and then come back. That's one way of working with it. Yeah. I think it's also helpful. I really like to bring in this more absolute, always already perspective, which is that you've never lost it.
Yes.
On the one hand, you've lost it.
That's right.
On the other hand, you've never lost it. It's your natural state. It never
Right.
goes anywhere.
That's right.
You can
That's right.
reconnect with it in a heartbeat. In fact, who is the one who's reconnecting with it? Who takes itself to be who you really are?
Right.
Whereas, in fact, you are the awareness
Right.
that you're reconnecting with, right?
That,
So I think that's really helpful because I
that's right.
remember after Zen,
I
after
think
many
that's
years of
key.
Zen and the hard driving, got to
Right.
wake up, hearing those teachings
Right.
was so powerful for me. I remember, Jean Klein
Yes.
saying, "The seeker is the sought. The looker is what he or she's looking for."
Seekers the sought.
That's what woke me up. That phrase, literally.
Right.
Shortly after I met
Okay.
him, it was like,
Wow.
whoa, everything just because
The looker
that's
is.
the direct approach. See?
That's right. Yeah. And then when you realize that and you have that hypothesis, I call it like a hypothesis. It's like, so it's not a religious belief. Like, here's the hypothesis: the awakeness you're seeking is already here. You can't lose it. Like, that's not okay. Now let's test that out. You check it out and you let me know what you find. But start with a premise or a hypothesis or a map that is different maybe than the one that is about trying to develop a skill of calm and insight. Or
Yeah, which are all, all activities of the separate self, you could say. I mean, yeah, 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 yeah.
and they could lead there. So I continue it on. So like you're saying that, so okay, if it's already here and you become identified, then the only thing that can return to itself or
Is
recognize
itself.
itself is
Exactly.
itself, which is actually
That's right.
within the
The
identification.
paradox again. It's a paradox. Once
So
you know how to work with it, though, it becomes something that's
right,
available in each moment. Yeah, yeah. It dissolves
that's right.
instantaneously. Yeah.
So that's why I created what I call, just kind of, it's actually not created, but it's a term that relates to in Dzogchen, actually, they talk about it often in preparing, moving through the bardo of life and death, that child
Right,
awareness
right, right.
returns to mother awareness. So I thought, oh, child awareness is identified. So I'll call it local awake awareness and have it ask somebody, okay, I'm not talking to you, the personality. I'm talking to you, the local awareness. Can you unhook and return home to the boundless awareness? And then it
Mm-hmm.
it does it. I mean, it's already there because it's. And then when you're in the boundless awareness, you're focusing using local awareness. You're no longer using attention, which is a type of awareness that's related to
Yeah,
the,
from above, as you said. Yeah.
yeah, from above. So what do you say if you had a student who you felt was like ready? Where would you start? Like, if you kind of sense that they were like, okay, they were good-hearted, I call them often good-hearted people. They're like, they're just kind of like, I'm sick and tired of this, or I'm like, I'm I think I had a glimpse, but can you show me, like, do you start, where do you start?
Well, first I would ask what the glimpse was, and what was the content of your glimpse, and if it's seems really true and accurate and real, I would validate it, which I think is really important. Um, but yeah, like we're talking here, to refer them back to, I have this meditation, resting and allowing, which is basically resting as awareness, letting everything be as it is. So directing them to rest back as awareness. So, basically for awareness to recognize itself, which is, usually, one of the most common first moves, you could say, for awareness to recognize that awareness is taking place and to rest there. And from that place, allow everything to be and see where that goes. That will but often people have already gotten that, so then what's next, you know?
So if somebody were resting, so if they were able to, like, okay, you kind of have asked them and they said, yeah, I just kind of did nothing. And you say, okay, rest and allow. Okay, now they're saying, okay, I'm here, I'm resting, I'm allowing. Wow. Okay, now everything's just moving, it's clearing, I'm not holding, I'm not judging. What would you say would be kind of the next possible
Mm.
pointer or two?
I would ask if awareness is aware of itself as the background of experience in that
Ah,
moment. Yeah. Because
beautiful.
it
Yeah.
sounds like in that moment,
Yeah.
there's a clarity, there's a relaxation, there's an allowing, but is there awareness aware of itself?
Mm-hmm.
Awakened awareness, which is it aware of
Mm,
itself? Yeah, yeah.
right. So then to say yes. Oh, it's yes, it's aware of itself. Oh, wow. Yes.
Rest
Now what would
there,
you say?
you know.
Rest there. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the
yeah. Rest
rest.
there.
That's
Rest
the
in awareness, aware of
yeah.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Often I'll say, so what's the relationship as you rest as awareness to vibration, sensation, thought, feeling, your body in the room?
All right. All right. That's it. That's a great question. Yeah, yeah.
Then that might kind of slowly go from the subtlest energy to a little more
Right.
human to a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
more
Mm-hmm.
physical to,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm. To
out again.
include more of the embodied, again, literally embodied experience. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then out to the room. So that kind of, whoop, woo, so that kind of
Mm-hmm.
move of, it's not just in, it's not just out, it's not just boundless awareness, but
Exactly.
it's thin. But as soon as you come in, it's, it's not limited back
Right.
to the
Right.
container of
Ultimately, if
the
awareness
body.
becomes aware of itself, then it can't be limited. I mean, that's the next step, is to open
Mhm.
out
Yes.
from awareness aware of
Yeah, that's
itself
the
to, where is it awareness located? Can you find it? You know,
right.
and then
That's
the
right.
recognition that awareness
Yeah,
has no location, that it's boundless, boundaryless. I would say that's the
that's
next
right.
step.
So resting as it aware that awareness is aware of itself, and then does it have a
Right.
boundary? Does it have a shape,
Right.
size, or color that shows the invisible?
This is
Does
very
it come and
Mahamudra,
go?
this stuff, which I picked
Yes,
up
is
in
right.
studying Mahamudra. I have, a little of this, a little of that. I have a very
Yeah,
eclectic background.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now you have found that what gives you gives your kind of fullness of your living it and teaching it is to create this school for kind of a limited number of people and work a little intensely. Is that right?
Yeah, when I was a monk, we practiced what's called ango. Yeah, in Japanese, it means peaceful dwelling, which was kind of the Japanese Zen equivalent of the rainy season practice period of the Buddha's time. And for 3 months, we would sit a couple of retreats and we would really focus in. And so I thought, wouldn't it be lovely to create something like that for, people who are living an everyday life where we can come together on a regular basis and really go deep together, have a few retreats and, like an ango, peaceful dwelling practice period. So I began that and, I've been doing it since 2007. And, shape has changed over the years. We used to get together in person, for example. We did that up to maybe 5 years ago. And then, because I moved out of the area and then COVID, and then so now it's all online. But it's very intimate. And I really love this working with people on an ongoing basis, in a relatively small group. Um, rather than just the satsang approach that people do, which is okay, but it's just like giving a taste, but you can't really follow people into deeper places.
Yeah, beautiful. And then you can give them, like you were just saying with me as we were dialoguing, you can say, well, it would depend on what they said, like you.
That's right, exactly. And I do individual mentoring as well. So I do a lot of individual mentoring. People do a mentoring intensive where they sign up for 5 sessions and we really go deep. And so I can track their progress. I really like that. I'm very happy with a small group. And you probably have both small groups and large groups.
I love both. I love being able, especially just introduce people in a large group. And then I found that what I end up doing is having them do dyads.
Yeah, dyads are powerful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do a lot of dyads as well. Yeah, yeah. People love the dyads. Yeah.
Even if at first they don't like the
Right,
idea. They're
and
like,
then
"Oh,
they
I don't
come
want to
back
have
and
a diet.
say,
I want to."
"This person is like my soulmate. It's like how did you choose this person?" And I said, "Well, I went down the list and I saw that you lived in the same area, and I paired you up, but because they are soulmates. Here they are. They showed up, and
Yes, that's right. They see
that's
that. They see it from their awake embodied nature. They see the namaste, right? The same,
absolutely,
same in somebody else. Yeah, there's something very in that relationality that is both. For some people, it literally is the best door, and some people it's the advanced door,
right,
but it's a
right,
good, door. I mean, either way, it's fruitful
right.
to do that kind of work. So working with people over time, and yeah, certainly I have in different formats people I've worked with, for up to 20 years, and certainly a bunch like 12 years and 5 years and six, and just not every week, but some,
Exactly.
and just to kind of report in and the fascinating thing is there, people who have had some stable awakenings, they don't go on to be teachers. They have their own profession. They do whatever they're doing, they live it, and then they share it in their own way.
That's the best. That's the best. We don't have to be a teacher when you wake up. There's a tendency these days I want to get in the satsang circuit. We need
Yeah.
awakened people more than ever, as you say. And I hope it's
Yes.
true what you said about it being the next stage in our evolution. I would like to think so before
Yeah.
it's too late.
Yeah. And so any supports that we can give, and certainly this kind of dialogue, I hope is helpful for anyone
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
listening. And uh, so I'm really happy to have spent this time with you. And
Yeah, beautiful, Locke. We got into some really interesting conversations together. Appreciate it. We're doing, in many ways, very similar work. I know
yeah,
you're very precise in the way you work, which is
yes,
beautiful. I really appreciate that about you.
yeah,
And it's great
yeah,
to be together.
yes, thank you. Yeah, I consider you one of my true colleagues. So it's lovely to have this opportunity.
Exactly, exactly. Let's do it again before too
All
long.
right, friend,
Yeah,
be
be
well.
well.
Hi, and welcome. Here today, we're going to continue to be directly introduced to awake awareness. The hypothesis is that this type of awareness is already here within each of us. These mindful glimpses are presented as experiments, so you can discover the results for yourself. The Tibetan word for meditation is gom, and it is often translated as familiarize. So we are not creating or developing a meditation state. Instead, we move from currently being lost in thought to become familiar with awake awareness as the foundation of our knowing and being. The reason this is important is that this familiarization is considered the way to relieve suffering at the source. Awake awareness is currently obscured, though it is actually hidden in plain view. Awake awareness is so subtle and invisible that we've missed it because we've been looking out from it. Awake awareness cannot be known by thought, our five senses, our will, effort, attention, or even mindful awareness. We can know awake awareness when we are resting and looking from here. When awake awareness is not recognized, we take ourselves to be the contents. From this limited view, we identify with whatever thoughts or feelings arise, as if they're true, and as if they're me. If the thought arises, something bad might happen. We begin to act as if it will happen, and our body responds by becoming afraid and anxious. Anyone have this experience? Deliberate mindfulness as the initial practice here is helpful to step back and notice the contents of our body and mind that are coming and going like stories, energy, parts of us, and emotional states. As we shift into effortless mindfulness, we move from focusing on the contents to discovering awake awareness as the context. We do this by having awareness look back from the contents to where we are aware from, and then rest as this spacious, awake awareness. Then all contents are included and welcomed from all around and within. So this may be new for you, but here's an experiment to familiarize yourself with awake awareness. Enjoy. To begin, sit in a comfortable way and simply close your eyes while allowing your awareness to remain open. Take a couple of slow, easy breaths at your own pace. And feel your breath moving within your body. Feel your whole body from within while noticing that your breathing is happening by itself. Be easy and comfortable and relax while remaining alert. And take a moment to see what is here now. Notice how your body is feeling. Is it uncomfortable, comfortable, agitated, relaxed, tired, in pain, or neutral? Just be aware of how your body's feeling without trying to change it. Just be aware of it as it is. Now, simply shift to be aware of what is feeling the sensations in your body. Feel the awareness in which these sensations are happening. Rather than being aware of sensations, feel the space and the awareness that is aware of them. Shift from the content to the context. Notice that the awareness is not tired, not in pain, not agitated or anxious. Feel how this awareness is both all around and within your body. Feel the relationship from this awareness to sensations and thoughts without blending with the content. Now notice the activity of your mind and thoughts. Just be aware of whether your thoughts are agitated, calm, tired, emotional, anxious, or neutral. without changing anything at all. Allow your mind and thoughts to be as they are. Now shift to notice the space in which thoughts are moving. Be interested in the awareness what is aware of the thoughts. Feel the awareness that is wordlessly aware. Notice how awareness allows your mind to be as it is. Begin to notice that awake awareness is alert, clear, and non-judgmental. And feel that this awareness is not tired or anxious and has never been in pain. Notice the awareness is all around and inherent within your body and within your mind, arising as your sensations and thoughts. Notice the sounds that you're hearing, and then shift to notice the awareness of the next sound. Does the awareness have a location or a size? Just curiously inquire, am I aware of this spacious awareness? Or what's it like when I'm aware from this spacious awareness as this spacious awareness, which is welcoming thoughts, feelings, and sensations? And now curiously notice, is this awareness like the sky? Or is it more like the ocean, arising as energy, sensation, your body, and the world? Notice the awareness that doesn't come and go, arising as the content which changes moment to moment. Naturally welcoming without effort. And as we end this practice, you can feel all your senses open as you open your eyes and notice what it's like to see from this more awareness-based open mind. Thanks for listening. This podcast is offered freely. And if you've enjoyed this, please download a free trial of our new app at mindfulglimpses.com. There we offer daily micro meditations and in-depth programs to support your awakening.